Hey there everyone, Rosaldo here, and I'm with a special guest, our resident expert, Shocktapus.
Hello.
A muted entrance there from yourself. And we have a tournament coming up this weekend, and we're using Tiberium X's new map pack. So we thought we'd do a short video to explain some strategies and basically the main points for each map. So we're on Desolate Hills, and I'll sort of take the nuts and bolts, and Shocktapus, you can take strategy a bit later on. How does that
Okay,
sound?
that sounds great.
Alright then, so this map is characterized by each player starting with three small to medium green Tiberium fields near their base, and they have two spikes each, one a bit closer to home and another one a bit exposed. So we've got bunker points at the top here and in the south as well, so the players can keep an eye on what's going on. Really big Tiberium fields in the bottom left and the top right. And then also we have blue Tiberium fields that are growing from nothing with an expansion in the south and north. And so, Shocktopus, what does that mean in terms of strategy?
So in terms of strategy from this map, because of the two spikes for each player and the quite close rush distances, it means it's quite an aggressive map. So early rushes can be quite strong. So expect if you're facing a nod player, expect early bike rushes. Or if you're against GDI, then you can see some APC NGs or maybe some APC rocket rushes. Or Scrin may want to go for early rushes with disintegrators to try and kill the spikes and try and gain a long-term economic advantage. The free fields at the start mean that it's fairly easy to avoid one clicks because you haven't got an easy target, because a lot of the time you want to have just one ref on the smaller fields and maybe two refs on the larger field. But then when you get down to the bottom in the late game, you may want to have two or three refs there. But by that point, the uh, the timing for the catalyst have already passed. And also, again, with it being quite a small map, you can't just rush up to one clicks as easily because you'll be under immense pressure from early assaults from tanks or infantry. So yeah, that's about it really from a strategic point of view.
Fantastic. So we know how I'm going to die then, an early disintegrator rush from Rildcom. It's written in the stars. Okay, brilliant. We will move on to the next map. Okay, everyone. Next up is Tournament Beach. So a really nice looking map with an interesting theme here. And I think it's best characterized by having quite an exposed MCV. You've got a medium green Tiberium field near you, and some larger ones dotted around the map, but most pertinently, just a bit like Pipeline, you have got a blue Tiberium field to snake towards. Being careful of the sand dunes because it's difficult to build on those. And last but not least, you have again quite exposed spikes near each player. But I would be very careful sending an engineer to this one. He might get tempted to the bazaar over here, and yeah, he'll end up spending all his money on sangria and stuff. So I'll stop the stupid jokes and I'll hand over to the expert. Shocktopus, what are the strategies we're going to use here?
So, like Pipeline, you will imagine most people will be going for crane builds to try and snake towards the blue Tiberium. So that will also mean there's some interesting counter options, because if you think that your opponent's going to be going crane, you might want to go shadows to kill the crane in the power plants, or you might want to rush APC NGs to take advantage of the fact that your opponent may not be prepared with defense because they are too busy going eco and going crane. Um, the other interesting thing to note is the expansion patterns. Is obviously you want to go for the blue first to go and get your economy boosted, and then your main second. But then the third field is up to you. You may want to sneak towards where your opponent is, or you may want to go to the opposite side to your opponent is if you want to go for a more defensive strategy. So basically, yeah, there's a lot of options of where you want to expand and how you want to play. If you want to be aggressive, you might want to go the same side as your opponent. If you want to be defensive, the other side. Yeah, so that's about it, really.
Fantastic, and I suppose the only last thing to say is we've got some garrisonable structures there to keep an eye on what's going on. Okay, the next location we find ourselves in is Tournament City. Probably best characterized by the big disrupted city in the middle with an emerging blue field there, so that'll be a battle to get that as quick as possible. You've got an extra large green field right next to where your MCV is, and then also another large field close to you. Not forgetting the spikes on either side. They're slightly closer to where you start, but still some garrisonable structures either side of them. So, Shocktapus, what's the score on this one?
So this one is kind of like like small town USA, but with just the one spike. So that map has just two big fields, but with this one, there's more. It's more natural for which one you want to go to. You normally just want to go to the one to either the left or the right of you. However, you could, if you wanted to, go for a sneaky surveyor to try and steal your opponent's field because they might be caught off guard using the cover of your spike and the garnisonable structures to hide the surveyor. And then you could also just do a standard build with a fast tech or crane, and yeah, I mean really it's all about making sure you get your expansion safely and having map control to get the blue Tiberium when you can, and obviously kill your person's spike.
It's a
Not
bit
really
more
much to say about
straightforward, this one, isn't it, really?
Yeah, very standard. This is very standard map, nothing particularly special, but it still gives interesting games.
Well, we say there's nothing special, but I mean, a quick visit to Dubai here, I think, yeah, wonderful structure to appreciate there. All right then, so we'll go to the next map. Okay, next up we have Tournament Evacuation, and I have to say, this is the map I'm probably most excited to see everyone play on. I think it's got a number of different and unique features. So the first thing I'll throw to is that we have an inactive gate at the moment, but you could see there's a timer at the bottom, and I suppose as we move forward through this portion of the video, you will see this gate become active, and you won't be able to do things like send APC NGs right across the map. The other thing is you've got your subway hub here and the consequent subway system, so at all levels of the map, so we have ones at the top, next to a few fields, so one over here, another one right in your opponent's base, and another one by the blue. So, Shocktapus, there's got to be some interesting strategies here for sure.
Yes, definitely so. As you were saying, the gate, that means that early rushes are not quite as potent as they might be because you can't send stuff straight down the guts. You've got to go around because by the time you send stuff, this gate will be up like it is conveniently just now. The other interesting thing is obviously the subway. So if you capture the subway, you might want to go and send you just send NGs into the little tunnels, and they can come out at other ends. And that one particular there, which Ross has just highlighted, can be used to capture your opponent's spike. So if you go see that, you send an NG into that tunnel, and it goes down, and it just captures that spike there. Then the other interesting thing about this map is the fact that the fields spread out, not away from your opponent, but spread just stretched out along the entire map. So it'd be really hard to defend, say, the top left-hand field and also the bottom left-hand field at the same time. So you can imagine that plenty of distraction tactics like stealth tanks or bikes could be used to draw your army one way while attacking the other way. And obviously trying to keep in mind that there is that blue field as well, which you want to keep leeching from when you've got your map control. So yeah, lots of interesting options for this map, and I'm quite excited to see how it play out.
Yeah, it's going to be really good, this one. Okay, on to the next map. Next up, everyone, we've got Tournament Desert. So each player spawns next to a medium to large field, right next to them. Not forgetting spikes in the top right and the top left. There is a rather large field in the north of the map with an expansion point just below, so quite a strategic location that, and a collection of fields at the south of the map. So, Shocktapus, what's the story here?
So this is quite an interesting map, even though it doesn't look that interesting. The interesting thing about this one is that the bases are quite close together, so you can, even if you want to, send a surveyor straight to your opponent's base. So you can park it just outside the edge of there. If you just go slightly to the left, yes, if you park a surveyor just right in the center of the screen there, and you can get plonked down a war factory after 2 refs and put pressure on your opponent's base, because they often will want to put their war factory more towards the south to try and crawl towards the fields at the bottom. So that you can have a really aggressive opening, especially if you're GDI or your Scrin with your Devastators, or not your Devastators, like your Devourers or your Predator
Yeah.
tanks. The other thing, of course, is you could send an engineer to get the expansion point at the top and try and get that field and use it as a springboard to launch an attack on your opponent's main base. But otherwise, if you don't want to do for anything goofy or anything, any sort of special tactics, it tends to be a war of attrition down at the bottom, where it's basically push and pull, trying to get as much of the bottom 4 fields under your control as possible. So a lot of back and forth fighting over those fields. So expect a lot of stuff like Sonics and Obelisks, trying to go and get control there. And obviously there is the option, if you lose out on the bottom, you may want to try and retreat to the top, which may be undefended to give yourself a chance to come back. And last but not least, the spikes being fairly exposed mean that if you are GDI, you may want to send an APC NG to capture it, because it'll be quite hard to recapture it given the long travel distance for recapturing. And same, Scrin may want to go and send the synths to go and kill the spikes early on, because again, it'll be quite hard for it to be stopped and require quite a lot of a commitment. So yeah, that's about it really.
Yeah, perfect timing as well. We'll move on to the next map. Right then, our last map from the Tiberium X pack, but our penultimate map in total. It takes us to Lockdown Hour. So, reminder a little bit of Tournament Arena, but without the blue. You spawn next to quite a large green field, with another one to the north and another one more towards the center of the map. Not forgetting a leechable blue field relatively close to you, with a spike nearby, and then the players will have to battle it out for the spike in the middle. I also want to call out these motorways, I'll call them, in the south and the north. Prime locations to see some APC NGs scooting along there. So, again, Shocktapus, what are the strategies here?
Yeah, there's also the EMP, which can
Oh,
be
of
quite
course.
important in the top left and bottom right of the map, which is unlike the EMP on Pipeline, is quite well defended, so that there is a very good chance to actually get it to be used in a game. But yeah, I mean, apart from the EMP, it's a fairly standard map where fairly open, so expect a lot of bike, buggy, scorps trying to just push for openings. You may see some double MCV trying to push their opponents off their third field. And there's also that turret over there, which Ross was just pointing out, which you can capture to give yourself a bit of a defensive vantage point. Yeah, a fairly sort of standard map, not really a lot to say. You'll see a lot of the strategies you see on many of the other normal 1v1 maps. Yeah, the key features being fighting for the third and fighting for that middle spike.
Fantastic. I think this map's got a lot of really cool small features. I love the, as a Londoner myself, I love the London Underground subway system, and I don't know how well these people are going to fare on a battlefield, but they'll probably just run away down into the subway. Alright then. So, next is the final map. Okay, our final destination is a map called Destination. This map has been made by Luvascott, especially for this tournament, and it's a fairly large one. Really interesting spread of fields here across the map, and each player has a spike fairly close to them, and not forgetting EMPs in the top left and the top right, and also we have kind of a depressed growing field in the middle with these ramps going down to it. So, Shocktapus, take us through some strategies here then.
So, with this being a fairly large map, you can imagine there'll be a lot of eco focus. You'd imagine that crane builders might be quite strong because you want to get a lot of refs up quite early on to get all the fields, and because you want to move your MCV to try and grab all the fields which are on the sides of the map. And I'd imagine that since it's quite an open map as well, you'll also see a lot of bike buggy, a lot of scorps trying to sort of circle around, trying to find poke holes in your opponent's defenses. And then at the end of the game, once all Tiberium has been eaten up, it'll come down to who's got the most map control to make an effort to grab the field in the middle, which may give them enough eco just to pip their opponents. Though, having said that, if you go to the middle too early, it just gives your opponent the chance to go for one of the other fields on the map if you haven't already eaten that up. So yeah, it is going to be a battle for who can get the most fields. So very much an eco-focused map.
Fantastic. Okay, that's all the maps then. So we hope to see you all in the tournament on the weekend. Go over to gamereplays.org and the Tiberium Wars forums to check that out. There's a $70 prize at the moment. So we both hope to see you there. So I've been Ross.
Yeah, I've been Shocktapus.
Love it. All right. Cheers, guys. We'll see you next time.